Trout. And talk about trout. I mean, 300,000 reasons to talk about it, right?
Okay.
Where do you get that number?
You know, we got it from the
state.
We did get it from the state. Definitely.
Just want to make sure it's not something you just made up.
Welcome, welcome to the Outdoor Line's last cast here on the 21st. You did, now, what about the no touching rule? Was there no? That's out the window now. Okay. Welcome back to the touching line on 710 ESPN Seattle. Our last cast Outdoor Line little video here, show wrap up. 300,000 anglers about to descend on the lakes of Washington, the whole state, and there's a lot of
opening
reasons
day
to
next weekend.
Yeah.
Get online, surf through the WDFW trout plant stats, and pick your local lake and find the one that's got the most fish. And if you're looking for big fish, look for those triploids. A lot of them, you know, they sprinkle triploids into the lake. Some will have 100, some will have 1,000, some will have a couple thousand.
Yeah.
These are the big trout that come out of these lakes every year. And in some of those lakes too, they plant some broodstock trout. These are the ones that they actually use at the hatchery to make the fish that we're putting in these lakes.
To make the fish.
To make the fish. They spawn these things out. This is how they make them. These things can be 5 to 8, 10 pounds.
Yeah. And some kid catches one every year.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. You know, the big brood stalkers in the creeks. Yeah.
Nothing so we talked some with that.
Absolutely.
5-year-old kid holding that 8-pound fish.
And we talked some technique on the show, Duane. Obviously, you're wearing the Pautzke shirt there. You're Mr. Pautzke.
Sometimes.
What are some of the things people can do with those dough baits? We talked about some different tactics, some different techniques and stuff to maybe stay away from, things you should do. Why don't you expound on that?
The nice thing, and I mentioned it on the show, and if you didn't catch it, the fire bait, the floating bait by Pautzke's is really nice in that it doesn't get all over your hands. It's really easy to use, and they got, I think we're up to 13 colors and different scents now. You know, and the garlic ones, and the thing they all have is a high percentage of krill, and these trout just gag themselves on krill, so they work really well because they float up off the bottom. You make a mistake when you try to fish them under a float. And maybe you use, got about a 5-foot leader under your float, and your weight's at about a foot or 2 foot down, and you got a 3-foot leader floating back up. That's going to put your bait actually floating a couple feet under the surface, which is exactly what you don't want to do. So you can use that under a float, but you need to put it on a little weighted jig head or something like that to make sure it's down and suspended. Best way to use floating bait is obviously off the bottom. Rig off your main line a swivel. Above your swivel you have a bead and an egg sinker. You're casting it out, let it sink off the bottom.
1/2 ounce egg sinker, 3/4 ounce,
something like that. And it depends on how deep you're fishing. But
knock it out there, let it sit on the bottom. The thing about that egg sinker, they can take it. They don't.
Slides through.
It slides right through.
The one thing people, you make a mistake if you cast out and close your bail. You know what? Cast that thing out and just let the line come off your spool. Let it pull line so that it's sinking out in the area that you want it to be, settling on the bottom. And when you close your bail, it pendulums it right next to your boat, right into your boat where you're making noise and stuff. So cast the thing out, let the line sink. When the line quits coming off of the bail, close your bail. Maybe tighten it up a little bit, set your rod down, and just wait for that thing to start bouncing.
Exactly. Then take the slack out of it. It's really important with this presentation, really any presentation you're making open day, kind of visualize where your gear is and how it's working, okay?
Right.
And then you're going to kind of, in your mind's eye, you can solve some problems that way.
And I like to, and I mentioned earlier, if I got 3 lines fishing out of my boat, I'm going to set those leaders at different lengths so that when that floats up off the bottom, I'm at 2 foot, 4 foot, maybe a 5 foot off the bottom. I want to see where those fish are suspended, and I want to figure out where they're at. I'll take that floating dough bait, I'll mold that onto my treble hook because it's engineered or designed to work.
What size treble?
12 is ideal.
Okay.
You're going to put a small dime-sized ball of bait on that treble hook, and it's going to float it up real nice. You can also slide a single egg on one of those just as an extra scent or attractant, But that dough bait works very well on its own, that fire bait. So just mold it on that treble hook. It's going to float it off the bottom.
What pound test line you want to run? And then you mentioned 13 colors. Of fire bait. Is there one? There's always one of these colors that sells way more than the others.
All the lakes seem to vary. There's guys out there that fish trout a heck of a lot more than me because I'm more of my years spent going after bigger fish. But I pretty much, any of the colors and scents is just a no-brainer. They smell so much like fish food that they're just drawn to it. And the greens, the chartreuses, the pinks,
the sherbet, all that stuff is going to work. And no matter what hook you use, if you use the treble, which is a pretty good choice for catch and release because it won't get so deep in the fish, okay?
Right.
And it's kind of counterintuitive, but that treble won't get so deep. Make sure you don't bury the hook point in the dough bait.
Yep.
Make sure that hook point is sticking out just a little bit so the business end of that hook is going to be unobstructed.
And you don't use a single hook because they come up and they pick at the bait, they blow the bait off, pretty soon you got no bait. Use that little treble hook.
The other thing, you know, on fishing these stock or trout, and a day of catching a lot of fish is nice, but we're using bait. And we know trout draw that in and it's down in their throat, and you go ripping that hook out and you're tearing, you know, the base of their gills and everything. You get a bleeder stalker, you better just take it home.
Yeah, I agree.
Don't just dump them back in the lake because you want the kids to catch, you know, 30 fish in a day. The ones that are bleeding, definitely take them home. If you want to release a fish, as long as it's hooked in the lip somewhere or around the mouth, no problem. But when they're down the throat using bait, you need to take those fish home.
I agree.
I'm having a hard time. We got they're just catching Dorado on the TV.
Hey, we're talking rainbow trout.
Somewhere in Florida. I'm having a hard time focusing here. Not a big surprise. We also have the lingcod opener coming up May 1st.
Yep.
Puget Sound. A lot of guys gearing up for that. That's a fun fishery. Guys are live bait fishing. They're throwing swim baits. They're doing all kinds of cool stuff out there. That's a pretty fun deal. And then shrimp season's coming up. We're going to be talking about that in the next couple of weeks too. Probably next weekend show.
Yep.
Yeah.
Getting guys geared up for that. How do you rig your pods? A little bit of where to fish, but mostly how to rig up, how to get through these big spring tides, and how to fish effectively during these short little windows of opportunity that we.
I'm going to bring in some. Attracting giveaways for that as well.
There you go.
Please do.
Talking our shrimp.
Keep an eye on the outdoorline.com. Of course, Duane's got an excellent blog up discussing his trip to the East Coast. I got your opening day top 10 tips to keep things moving moving smoothly on opening day, and tell you what,
moving slowly.
It's been one of those kind of mornings.
Slowly.
Yeah, definitely.
Well said, sir.
Right on, brother. Well, let's get out of here. I'm ready to go home. It's sunny outside.
Yeah.
Let's get the heck out of here. Thanks for listening this morning, guys.